From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to you. Another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 21st. We finally got some snow this week. Yay! For those snow lovers that were waiting for snow for so long, we finally got it. And that's been going back for the past 2 weeks in some areas, but we are off the schneid. And some areas are actually above average for the month of January, if you can believe that. So there were some moans and groans in the Friday long-range outlook I put out a couple days ago, and I just want to give a little bit of clarity to that today. I don't think winter's over. We are going to get this period of a break in here where we're not going to be dealing with things that are cold and snow, or snowy patterns anyway, probably for through about the midway through the second week of February. Between now and then, I don't see a whole lot. There might be some icy mixes to rain, or might be some, like we have a system coming in Wednesday morning that might produce some freezing rain in some areas. But, I mean, there's going to be largely no big snowstorms or anything like that shown on the horizon. So when we look at the long range that I did on Friday, moans and groans are coming for the fact that I don't have a winter storm signal listed because it's too far of a range for me to put a specific time frame yet. But I have time frames in my head, and I'm going to share a few of those with you today. And also the temperatures here at the end of the month. Now, this is well advertised. We knew it was going to be. We were going to have this last full week of January. It was going to be warmer than average, and in some cases, it says slightly above average here between the 25th and 30th. But a few of those days, especially between the 25th and 27th, are going to be solidly above, and then the rest of that time frame won't be quite as high. So the whole week average is slightly above. But you see the progression here, right? And then you get a slight step back for a day or two, and then you go right back into milder again in the second, up through the second week of February. So probably looks like around the 10th or so, 10th, maybe 11th, you have some milder conditions. I know this says the 15th here. It says between the 8th and 15th. I'm backing that up a little bit now today. I think it's going to be a little bit quicker than that, but I do think we return to colder than average temperatures and then a stormier pattern, and I'll show you why here in today's video. First, average annual snowfall for the month of January and February side by side here, left to right. This is what you can expect normally in the month of January. Some of these areas have already received this month, so that means you're going to finish January above average no matter what happens the rest of the month. You might not have another flake, and you probably won't in a lot of these areas see another flake the rest of the month. But it doesn't matter. You're still going to finish slightly above average or above these numbers here because you've already received it, okay? And I'll show you that here in a second. But February is typically our snowiest month across the region, climatologically speaking, and I still think we're going to finish at least slightly above average here in the month of February, even with that the earlier, milder risks, because I think we're going to make a turn here in February. Now, here is what we have snow thus far compared to normal year to date. Now, all of these are red except for Philadelphia. Philadelphia is blue because they are not only above average this month, as denoted by the asterisks next to a couple of these, but year to date, you're ahead of the pace, even without any snow in December and without any snow in November. Year to date, you've made up for that, and this is actually quite impressive. Even though it's not a huge snowstorm in Philadelphia, your average annual snowfall, this is more than a third of that, and it fell in this week. Okay, so it's pretty big. A third of your average annual snowfall, actually more than a third, has fallen already this week. So this is pretty big for you. I don't think you're going to stay blue for long because probably next week it's going to be back to red again, but you will still, by the asterisks next to some of these, Philadelphia, Allentown, Harrisburg, Atlantic City, you will finish, even if you have no more snow the rest of this month, which is probably likely, you will still finish above average snowfall for the month of January. Matter of fact, some of these places, this is the snowiest it's been in the month of January in these locations since January of 2016. Okay, it's been a while since January has been this snowy, but going into February, I think you're going to make up for it yet, and we have the opportunity to do so. Okay, so we were expecting higher than this or excuse me, higher than this right here, this one, higher than this in the month of February. So I think we still have that opportunity, and I'll show you why. First, the background state, which is the El Nino. This has been unchanged. This is done every single Monday, so this is actually 6 days old. Since then, we're starting to see a decline in these values. So next week, you'll see a lot of blues here because it's declining. This is still a central-based Nino, and we talked about this in November when I started doing these Weather Weeklies videos for this season. We thought that during the month of December, we would see a stray away from the east base to go more central based or basin-wide or something like that, and we have seen that in the month of December. That happened. And then we said January, you're going to start seeing at some point, you're going to see a gradual decline, and that is happening too, and it's happening this week. And it's expected with the new January projections from that January projections going forward from the models are looking at this going down from this point forward. So you've already reached your peak, you're already heading downward, and that's already starting this week on the intra-week stats, which is not here. This is last Monday, and I suspect that next week you'll see a reflection of that change because we are starting to decline, and that means El Nino is not as strong as what it once was. Okay, it's coming down, and it's going to continue coming down to the point where we might be like into La Nina eventually as we get into the summer months, okay, or at least the week the La Nina sign of neutral, okay. So this is where we're headed down the line. I don't want to get too much into that, but so we were talking about stratospheric warming last week, okay, and how that set up this whole past week with these really cold temperatures and the snow chances, right? The stratosphere is not completely necessary in order to get this snowy pattern going, okay. It certainly helps, okay, and it can trump the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is, if it's in unfavorable phases, it can trump that and supersede it. And that's what kind of happened. Now, we had another stratospheric warming event coming, and I showed you this graphic last week, where it dips down like this, and that was going to be pretty close to a zonal wind reversal, okay? Well, this was last week's graphic. It did actually have a complete zonal wind reversal temporarily, but it was only for like 24 hours, okay? So by doing that, after that point, it quickly recovered, and I mean sharply recovered. As you can see that on the new graphic today, you can see that's rapidly recovering here, and this is almost like the atmospheric version of the opposite of a sudden stratospheric warming event is a sudden stratospheric cooling, okay, and it's just really recovering too fast. So it didn't have time really to couple to the troposphere and change our pattern really, and that's why instead of going colder in the first week of February, it's going to wait a little bit, okay? And it's going to be somewhere during the middle of the second week of February, I think, that you're going to have that change. Here's that what it looks like graphically. Again, this is warming. It's starting off with warming at the poles. You see how it recovers and recovers very quickly and gets reestablished over the polar regions with the, instead of warm, you go to cold over the stratosphere, and that's a big difference, and it didn't last long at all. So it didn't really have an effect on the pattern. So for those of you who are waiting for the sudden stratospheric warming to kick in, it's not going to, and that's because it's recovering so quickly and didn't really have time to couple to anything, okay? So that aside, I wanted to address that as not a big player in our forecast today. So we're going to go forward to the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is going to be running the pattern. The phases it's going through, right now it's in phase 5. It was just phase 4. Phase 4 this time of year is not really super warm. It's when you get out here. These are warm phases. 5 and 6 are warm phases, and it's going right through there. Okay, and then you see as you go through the end of the month, and here's the end of the month, and then you go into early February. It starts going into 7. Okay, 7 is one of those give or take type things. Okay, it can be you could put a C/W here because it could be both. These are all cold phases over here, right? Those are cold phases, cold phases. This can go either way, and the reason it can go either way is because it's susceptible to influences from other teleconnections, okay? So if the teleconnections, once we get in phase 7, are favorable, which they look like they're going to be, with things like blocking, with a negative EPO, positive PNA, negative Arctic oscillation, that can override, that can take this into a colder phase and make this colder instead of milder. It can turn milder if your teleconnections aren't favorable, but phase 7 is much more workable. And you can see European ensemble is on the left, the Australian is on the right, and they're both doing the same thing. Now the GFS extended is kind of keeping it right around a circle here, looping in it, and it still takes into the 7 though, but it's just very low amplitude. That's not really important. The important is if you get to phase 7, that is a workable phase as long as you have other things working with you, okay? So we are going to turn milder, as we said this week. Here's the examining the temperature periods, and you can see the mild, especially mild between the 25th and 27th, and with a system moving through. But you just kind of stay that way. This goes all the way through February 4th, right? You stay mild for most of that period, okay? Milder than average. Nothing blowtorch stuff except for that 25th to 27th time frame when that rain's moving through, okay? And it draws in warm air temporarily. Okay, but the colder temperatures that are there at the beginning of the period are gone, and you don't see any colder here over the next 2 weeks. This is a 2-week loop of the European ensemble. Okay, and it looks pretty mild. So there's not real any real chances of snow or cold or in that period. Again, there could be something you're squeezing in there like Tuesday, late Tuesday, and maybe early Wednesday, some freezing rain or something like that, but nothing looking like any kind of snow events. Not seeing that right now. Okay, so we go into the Euro Weeklies now. We're going to go past this and start from the beginning of the second week of February and go forward, okay, and watch what happens. Starts off mild, and then all of a sudden, boom, yeah, cold, and this goes all the way through the month of February and into the first week of March. And look at that. So it's just solidly slightly below average and stays that way. So this goes away, and then once you get midway through the second week of February onward, at least as projected now, you are colder than average, okay? This is a very typical pattern of El Nino in the month of February. I want to show you something here. Now, this is the reason why we look at all those warmth here, right? And you have no blocking over Greenland. Here's all the warmth. Watch this. This is why Phase 7 can work. Look what gets established. You get a west-based negative NAO, and it stays there for this entire time, and it's locks in for a while, okay? So you go from a positive NAO, which is you're blocking Greenland, which there isn't any, so it allows all this warmth to come in, and then look what happens. You get blocking established, and I can stop this here. Look where it is. It's sitting. Here's your blocking right here. It's a west-based negative NAO here. And that's what's shown, and you get all this cold underneath as a result of that. So that is what's going to end up happening and changing the pattern, I think. And this is also a negative EPO. It's a positive PNA. You get a negative Arctic oscillation coming in from the polar region. So this all adds up to a switch in the month of February back to cold and stormy. And it may be, once you get in February, these storms tend to get a little more juicier. Okay, they're not just like rinky-dink storms anymore. That could happen too. I'm not saying that's going to. I'm not suggesting that we're definitely getting a big, major snowstorm this year. Certainly possible, and your odds are better in February for that to happen, especially in a pattern like this. Sign me up for this every single day if I'm a snow lover. Okay, so there is opportunities down the line, but again, this is a long range. Look how far the future this is. This is looking at the 18th, the evening of the 17th of February. That's way out there. That's way out there. But at least you can see that this is trying to do this. You're going away from a warmer pattern that's going to establish here at the end of January and the first week or 10 days of February, and then you replace it with this, okay, in a stormier period along the East Coast, okay? And if you look at what February's do in El Ninos, okay, now it says East base, but this also works for Central base too. Look what it's doing. Look what it's doing, okay? This is west base NAO blocking. You got a negative, positive PNA. You got a negative EPO, okay? Negative Arctic oscillation, and cold underneath. Wow. Wow. Okay. So if I'm looking at this, what the Euro Weeklies are doing, and you could look at a model and say, yeah, that looks great, but is it actually going to come to fruition? Well, you don't know that for sure. I don't know what happened. There we go. You don't know that for sure. But when it's showing what a typical El Nino does in the month of February, it kind of helps with the credibility a little bit, if you know what I mean. Okay, so when it's starting to show this, as we get out in time, and I have to let this loop again, unfortunately. But when you get the NAO established, right around the middle of the second week of February, this changes, and you start getting a look like this, and it matches what this looks like in a, I don't know why this is doing this. There we go. In February, when it looks like that, what it should look like, it kind of helps the credibility along a little bit. So is this 100% positively guaranteed going to happen? No, and it never is, because people need to understand that weather is not a deterministic thing. It's not if A, then B. It's not how it works. It's probabilistic. So we have to go with a probability, especially when we do our longer range stuff, okay? Now, what about storm signals, okay? I didn't list any of the long-range outlook on Friday, and I didn't do that purposely because it was too far of a range. There's a couple periods that I'm going to be highlighting, and this is the European Ensemble, okay? The European Ensemble has, or the Extended Ensemble has 100 individual members. They're all on the left side here, from 0 to 100. So each one of these lines going from left to right are what each ensemble member projects for snowfall across the region at this particular location, which is our centermost point, Lehigh Valley International Airport. Okay, so that's Allentown, Pennsylvania. That's like the center point of our entire region, which is like the eastern 2/3 of Pennsylvania, all New Jersey, all into Delaware, and the northern and eastern shore of Maryland. That is our coverage area. So that's kind of the centermost point. So it has it every location. I can't just pull up many locations, but there's a period right in here. You get right in here. And there's the first one. That's the first signal that it's showing. This is kind of like right around the 10th, 11th, 12th of February. Okay, so I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. That's the first one. There's another period here right after that. It's right around President's Day weekend. President's Day, I believe, is Monday the 19th. So between the 17th and 19th, there's another storm signal in there. Okay, there's additional signals beyond this. So we have some opportunities. The first one being right around that 10th to 12th period in February. And again, I'm just spitballing here, but this is giving you an idea. It starts increasing. There's nothing really. I mean, I know there's some BS here, but most of these ensembles don't have anything or very little before that point. Okay, and it makes sense because it's milder, right? But once you get past that and you get a more favorable time frame, you start getting one there, one here. This is President's Day weekend, a second check. So the weekend would be, 17th, 18th, 19th, right? Somewhere around there. We usually, if we have big storms, typically they are found around President's Day weekend. I don't know what it is about. It must be a magnet. But you have additional signals that continue straight into early March as well. Okay, so there is opportunities here. There are opportunities. It's not like I'm just making this up. And I am spitballing here with dates, okay? And I don't want to put firm dates in an outlook just yet. But I'm telling you, keep that in the back of your mind. If you're a watcher of the Weather Weeklies every week, and you all of a sudden see something coming up in that February 10th, 11th, 12th time frame, something like that in a long range outlook, don't be surprised. You guys won't be surprised. I can't put that in firm writing yet because we just don't know the exact dates. It's too far of a range for me to give exact time frames, but I like those periods. I like those periods right now. Now that's assuming all this is happening with the NAO, because again, phase 7 of the Mount Julian Oscillation can go either way. It still can be good as long as you get this west base block going, which is very ideal. And then all the other teleconnections follow. Your PNA, your EPO, your AO, that all follows. But everything pretty much has it going into phase 7. That's not the issue. And it gets to phase 8, that's even better yet. Okay, then we have no question, right? There's no, well, it could go either way. No, it's just cold and it's stormy. That's all there is to it. So if it progresses into phase 8, great. If it doesn't, that's okay, as long as you have these teleconnections working with it. But we don't know that yet. Again, there's a lot of this is just, you get long range, it gets a little fuzzy. Even longer range. Long range is hard enough to begin with. You start getting into weeks 3, 4, 5, then it starts getting, and things change around a little bit. But the end of month warmth, we're going to get after this cold period we have right now currently, should get us to about average for the month as far as temperatures are concerned, temperature departures. We are going to finish the month at least slightly above average, +1 to +3, maybe even +2 to +4 in some areas, especially when you get up by like the areas that are typically warmer. So across our region, like Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, I believe today was like +1.5 going into today. So you might be a little bit higher there, or maybe down by Philadelphia is also +1.5, but places in between like Allentown up to Newark, Carter, you're generally very close to average, okay, as far as average temperatures. So I do think this warmth that you're going to have this week is going to push you above average, and you're probably not dealing with much snow again this week, but we will have opportunities for some ice. We'll address in the daily forecast videos this week. So to summarize, the January thaw takes over the final full week of the month with a break from the snow. So we're not going to have that for the rest of this month, and probably not the best snow pattern for the first half of February until you get to that second week of February, midway through, okay? It's still workable for a thread-the-needle type situation prior to that, so it's not like you can't get any snow, but the pattern's not the best really for during the first half until you get through, again, about the 10th, 11th, 12th of February, somewhere in there, ironically to coincide with that storm signal. Possible storm signal that I spitballed about today, right? So mid-February, week two turns colder than average during the week. okay? During the week, it starts turning colder than average, and the snow chances increase after that with blocking helping out, and then better teleconnections, better MJO, okay? So again, phase 7 is okay as long as the other factors are there, and right now the indications are that you're going to have some blocking that are going to set us up. Now, we talked about this in the Weather Weeklies videos way back when about blocking, that when we start getting blocking, we're probably going to have that down the line later in winter, second half. That's why we're backloaded. And this is a setup this year from the background state to promote better blocking down the road. And here we are. Okay, we're going to be coming into that in February. So not a guarantee. This could very well flop. It's not impossible. I don't think it will, but well, that's why we do this every single week, and we just have to update, as we go along, okay, and adjust as we need to. Right now, I like where we're going into February. Maybe not early February, but we will have some changes in February. By the way, don't worry about the sun angle. I don't know why everybody brings that up. Who cares? All right, so it doesn't last that long. Who cares? Okay, if it's not accumulating on the roads in March, great. You don't have travel disruptions. I know why everybody, why do you deal with a snow angle or sun angle? You don't have to worry about that right now. That's not something you have to worry about till you get to March. But you can still get. I can give you plenty of examples, a plethora of examples of where February and March have produced some real doozies. Okay, and overcame sun angle and all that other nonsense. Just don't worry about that stuff. That's weenie talk. Okay, that's all that is. Okay, so just leave that alone. But we will address this every single week going forward and see where we're going from here. Most notably, with these temperatures going into February, is this going to hang on longer, or is it going to change to this, which I think it does, but again, that's assuming blocking takes shape. So that's really what my focus is going to be here over the next couple of weeks. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 21st. Join us again next week, and we'll give you an update on this situation for February and see if we can identify any storm signals going forward. Take care.